Welcome to BizTech's Startup Show, where we feature startup companies across industries as they build and scale their businesses. Now, today's features company is Hula, a buy now, pay later platform. And with us is Arvin Singh, Hula's COO and co-founder. Arvin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Now, Arvin, walk us through what Hula does.
So Hula is Asia's leading buy now, pay later ecosystem. We drive value for our merchants and our consumers. On the consumer side, that means we split their payment into 3 interest-free monthly repayments at 0 fee, 0 cost. And on the retailer side, we're solving some of their biggest challenges, conversion rates, basket size, and of course, getting new consumers to visit their site and to return to them.
Okay, what inspired you and your co-founder to start Hula?
So there's probably a very long background story there, but I'll stick to the short version.
Okay.
So, Stuart and I used to spend some time working together at WorldPay. So we had gotten, familiarized with each other's work style. So that's probably a good starting point to get that comfort level, trust, just understanding. And then we started to spend some of our free time volunteering essentially with startups. So we were doing mentorship at Startup Bootcamp FinTech here in Singapore, and started to get more and more into the startup ecosystem. I think it's just one of those days of conversation and looking at each other. Maybe we can go down this road and do this. So many failed brainstorming sessions later, Stuart rang me up. We had a quick chat. He was looking at this gap on the e-commerce side specifically at that point where, e-commerce is growing really, really rapidly, but merchants were still complaining about conversion and customers hitting their site, starting the journey, but this massive drop off on the checkout flow. So that's really the genesis of it. The feedback we were getting from merchants at the time is, they're looking at payments and technology companies to come in and help solve this problem. So the problem statement was really clear. We did do some further validation on it, and from there, that's where we saw the business opportunity. When we went out and found our other co-founders to come join, we have 2 technical co-founders as well in the business that helped us build and grow the platform.
And how big is the team right now?
Across all markets and the group team, I think we're somewhere between 150 to 160 team members.
And which markets are you? You started off in Singapore, but and then you moved on to Malaysia. How many markets are you in right now?
Yeah, so we launched initially in 2018 in Singapore. In 2019, we launched Malaysia. And last year, we launched Hong Kong. The plan now is to launch a few other markets, but we'll get into some of those details. But yes, we're live in those 3 markets at present.
Okay, and break it down exactly how Hula actually works for the customer as well as for the merchant. Now, Hula pays the merchant upfront for the product, whatever, and takes the credit and fraud risk. Am I correct?
So we take on the full risk of a transaction, and that's correct. We'll pay the merchant upfront. We can talk about the journeys slightly separately on what a merchant does to get started, what a consumer does to get started. On the consumer side, it's 2 flows. One is the e-commerce flow, where you sign up to Hula. We take some basic information, your IC, your mobile number, your valid email account. You can get started with registering to use the service. For the e-commerce flow, you just treat it as you would any other checkout on your favorite website, and you choose Hula as the payment method at checkout. In a retail store, you use the Hula app to scan a QR code, and then you can obviously track both e-commerce or in-store orders straight from the Hula app going forward. You can make early repayments, you can just manage your future payments, you can get the notifications on those future repayments. There's a lot of communication that we do. We're pretty aggressive on making sure you know when that next repayment is coming.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, continue.
No, go for it. I can chat about the merchant side a little bit.
I think so. One of the key challenges that I wanted to ask you is, what eKYC or know your customer stuff do you do to prevent fraud and also to make sure that your customers are actually creditworthy?
It's an interesting one. We've taken a completely different approach to solving this problem. And because we take on the full risk of a transaction, whether that's fraud or repayment, we built our own proprietary risk decision engine. It's an in-house solution. It conducts real-time risk assessment on every single order, even if that's a known customer or a new customer. So, it's not a one-off, let's just do an upfront scoring on this person. We kind of set it, forget it. Yes, they're, good to go. It's active, it's learning, it's a continuous assessment model. And we're continuously improving it as well. Over the last 3 years, we've made many modifications, adjustments, and improvements to refine that.
Okay, and what sort of data points, how many, give us an idea of the data points that you use in terms of this learning algorithm.
Yeah, I think you touched on specifically KYC or factual information about a customer. I think that's super important. We look at a multitude of behavioral elements. That one's a little tougher for me to go into details on, as a lot of that is proprietary and where some of our IP is built. A lot of the data sources also are predicated on, when they're buying, how they're buying, which merchant they're buying from. All of those aspects come into that decision making.
Okay. And on the merchant side itself, how much do you charge the merchant, and how do you manage that relationship with the merchant?
Yeah, great question. So there's generally a couple different channels where we're engaging with merchants. Whether that's a direct outreach to merchants that were in our network from past roles that we had across the region. But between the team, we've had multiple payments roles and worked with merchants for over a decade. Plus, especially in e-commerce. So there's quite a bit of merchants that we have that trust and history with. There's a lot of inbound merchants, as we've grown the business, we've got a great funnel of inbound leads coming in on a daily basis where retailers are just really excited to work with us. And of course, we've got a really robust partnership structure where we work with either, global partners like the Visa announcement, which is where we got connected from, e-commerce platforms like Shopify, loyalty platforms like Perks. There's a multitude of partners that we work with as well in that. Well, for a merchant to get started, it's fairly straightforward. We've pre-built plugins into all of the major e-commerce shopping carts. For an in-store integration, we'll roll out a team that will go in, train staff, deploy the QR code, make sure that all that operational aspect is done, and the team in-store, the merchant's team is really comfortable with the solution. So those are a really quick start. We've had a merchant contact us at 9 a.m. and by noon they're live and transactional with us. We've done our checks. It's not a complex integration, and that's an e-commerce merchant that had to essentially integrate our API, and that's how quickly we were able to get them live. So there's a lot of work done on a continuous basis, not just I think on investing into making our APIs as robust and easy to use, but also documentation, right? Just making sure that that's at the highest standard. So when somebody comes through, their tech team can read a few pages of documentation and really get started very, very quickly.
Now, obviously, for the benefits to the merchants, and you went through it very quickly, and I'll just recap that, is essentially getting customers to come to their stores. It drives conversion, increases basket size, and of course, hopefully repeat customers as well. But one challenge with this is actually, of course, in the process of getting customers to spend more money, you then have that issue of, do people overcommit to impulse purchases? How are you managing that?
So this is one of the key ways in which we're different from any other buy now, pay later in the market. At this point, we started the business with a model of responsible affordability. It's one of the first things that we did. It's in our vision statement. It's been part of the business from day one. And that means a couple different things to us. One is allowing customers to really take control of their spending. So if you look at how transparent the app is, how transparent everything is, how clear the reminders are, it's very straightforward. On top of that, we've coupled it with content. So we've built our own content. We've gone out with the right bloggers. It's budgeting tips, personal financial management, how to take control and make sensible purchasing decisions. So before they even make a first-time use of Hula, you're getting exposed to all of this great content. But that's, one step. The other is being proactive about it, using technology to deliver responsible affordability. We actually put a cap on the number of purchases that a customer can make at any one time. And if a customer is unable to make any single purchase, they're unable to make further orders. So, we have these controls in place. They're layered levels of control. This is separate to the risk engine that I spoke about. This is just good, responsible approach to our users. So, if you try to, and I've seen other buy now, pay later businesses go out there and promote, do as many transactions as you can in the next 48 hours to win a prize. We'd never be able to run that type of promotion to begin with, because we'd actually shut down a customer after they did a couple of orders in quick succession. Now,
which is sound risk management for you as well. I mean, not only looking after the customer, it's sound risk management on your side.
Absolutely. It's just good business all around. And we don't want to have people end up in a situation where they're unable to make those repayments, and we've created that circumstance for them, which is why we've had that control in place when we first built the platform. The challenge with that is twofold. One, it's essentially potential revenue that you are turning away at that point. And it's important that we understood that as a business. And to your point, the counterbalance is it's good risk management. The second is, how do you communicate that effectively to a shopper that wants to use your solution in that moment, and you're essentially saying no? And we've spent a lot of time to make sure that how we communicate, how we share that information, and how we make that statement to a user is, as in, we want you, we appreciate you as a customer, but we'd like you to wrap up some of your existing orders, get those payments completed, and then continue to enjoy Hula.
Okay, that's interesting, because now, once again, not only responsible, but it's good risk management. But then how do you then differ from other platforms? Now, this is a hot space, buy now, pay later. What makes you special?
I think responsible affordability is that killer piece for us right now, because it takes a few forms. It's not just the content, it's not the mindset, it's not just the culture, but it's also the technology that we've put in place. So everything I described around responsible affordability, I think actually gives us a massive leap ahead of our competitors who are, looking to push some of the gimmicky kind of promotions and those things out there to get users onto their platform. We're taking a position of trust and responsible approach with our users. Now, beyond that, of course, I described the proprietary technology, bank grade type of infrastructure, the security that goes behind that. Our CTO was previously spearheading the technology for one of the global multi-billion-dollar buy now, pay later businesses out of Australia. That deep technical expertise that exists within the team is a massive competitive advantage. Of course, going well beyond payments, right? We've established ourselves now. We had that first mover advantage as a buy now, pay later platform where we drove the conversion, we had the outcomes, we could show it really strongly to our partners, our merchant partners. And now we've gone down this path of what more value could we bring to them. And we've deepened that relationship with a lot of our big retailers to really drive that traffic, that conversion, that marketing platform essentially, and a massive channel to get them in getting more customers actually to their platform.
Okay, which brings me to the question, what is your revenue model and what are you looking at to add on to that revenue stream?
Okay, that's a really good one on the second part of that question. We'll get there in a sec. I think, very much a B2B model. The merchant is our paying partner, and it's based on a percentage of each successful transaction made using Hula. We don't charge any setup fees or onerous contracts or anything hidden to our merchant partners. And of course, because of that, we're incentivized to having our customers pay on time and not overextend themselves. To your point, because the merchants are the ones paying, we're motivated as a business to manage that risk really strongly. Future revenue models, sometimes it's possible to get caught up in this as a business in our stage before we really establish ourselves in that core business model. And I think the focus of the team is we really want to be Asia's leading buy now, pay later business first and foremost. Now that means massive expansion across the region, but it also means a ton of focus on our core business model to make sure we are driving immense conversion for those merchants. We're driving a ton of new traffic for our merchant partners, but still keeping the business model fairly straightforward and simple to understand for the merchants as well.
Now, you've received an 8-figure funding round just before the pandemic hit, which is probably great timing. How have you deployed that capital, especially given the fact that it allowed you then to have that breathing space and war chest to then re-strategize?
It's a great question. So we used our Series A funding after that point to really look at how we expand the business and taking a platform approach, essentially. So we knew that we needed to be in more markets, but we wanted to build the right infrastructure that would allow us to jump into those markets at scale. So we used Hong Kong essentially as a market where we would take this platform-based approach. So we launched English at first, only in Hong Kong, but we knew that multi-language capabilities was something that was necessary. So we invested in building out a multilingual platform where we could deploy other language packs into any market at any point that we wanted to. So that was a really important element of how we built our technology going forward, because it really is about doing these things at scale. If we want to be the leading BNPL across Asia, we're going to have to launch quite a few markets to get to that point. So taking this technical platform-based approach was really important. Launching new markets like Hong Kong, launching our in-store retail solution, that was probably one of the biggest elements following our Series A as well. We went out and we were able to bring to market a full omni-channel solution, which we launched first in Singapore and then subsequently in Malaysia last year.
Now, given that scenario, what were the biggest challenges that you have faced? You guys, since you started out and being the pioneer really in rolling out this.
Yeah, actually, that's exactly the challenge, is when you're the pioneer in a new category, you have to establish that category. So a lot of what we had to do is educate an entire market on what is buy now, pay later. And that's both consumers and merchants, to help both sets of that marketplace, that ecosystem, understand the value. And of course, for merchants, some merchants also operate in, say, Western Europe or in Australia, so they understood the concept of buy now, pay later already. So that approach was a lot easier because they understood the value.
Yeah.
On the consumer side, it was quite difficult because this concept is very, very new. And I think going out there and establishing this category as a whole, it really challenged us to get the content right, to get the educational content right. And actually, the market was very much about just driving category education for the first year. So that was one of the most challenging periods for us. And I think we see that even as we go into new markets where buy now, pay later isn't necessarily an established category, we're going to have to spend quite a bit of time building out the category first before we can really demonstrate to the market why we are the leaders in buy now, pay later.
Okay, and so that would imply to my next question, what's your journey looking like moving forward? Because you've taken this 8-figure funding round. Obviously, your investors want a return. What's the long-term strategy for Hula?
So certainly that mission statement remains very valid for us, right? It is Asia's leading buy now, pay later ecosystem. And if we break that down, Asia, it's a broad region. We've got Southeast Asia and North Asia as our focal points. And that means expansion into markets like Thailand, Philippines, Vietnam, but also into places like Korea and Taiwan. So those remain both important parts of our strategies to go both into North Asia as well as deeper into Southeast Asia. So I think that's one really, really important aspect of this journey. The ecosystem statement, I think, is one where we look at how we grow the merchant, consumer, and partner ecosystem that will support buy now, pay later across the region. I think a lot of our conversation stemmed from a recent partnership announcement that we had with Visa in Malaysia, and those are the type of initiatives and partnerships that we see as being really important to educating the market, establishing the category, and really bringing Hula to the forefront of what buy now pay later can be in a new market.
And how does Visa facilitate this whole thing? How does this partnership help you and help Visa?
So the goal is very much a shared one, where we'd like to support the retail ecosystem. Specifically for that partnership was in Malaysia, where we wanted to identify and support retailers post COVID who need support, who want to get more customers through. And by doing so, by working together, we're able to identify who those SME retailers are that need that support, and we'll give some hands-on support for those retailers that come through the program with Visa. So it's part of the Where You Shop Matters program to support local retailers in Malaysia.
Now, final question, Arvin. What are the key business lessons you've learned in your journey so far that you can share with other startup founders?
It's a great one. I talk about this quite a bit because I think it's really important. We operate in a market that is really complex, and I'll say two things. One, Asia is really diverse. Each country is super different, and if you're building a business that grows across this region, always keep reminding yourself of that. It's possible that technology can break some of those borders and boundaries, but how you go to market is going to be different in each one of those markets. It's different compliance, different regulation, different partnerships that will be needed to go deep. The other is hiring the right people at the right role at the right time to support the growth of the business. We talked last year, you mentioned last year the Series A that we raised right before the pandemic hit, and our intent to go into physical retail. We needed to bring team members in that had a sense of how retail operations worked, so that we understood how an in-store solution could function. As we progress the business now, operate in new markets, there are certainly other team members that we have to bring in to ensure that we're growing in the right way and support that growth.
Thank you very much for taking your time to be on the show, Arvin.
Excellent. Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Now, I'm Brian Fernandez, and I've been speaking to Arvin Singh, Hula's COO and co-founder, on BizTech Startup Show. This video will be on our Facebook and LinkedIn site, as well as our website, www.biztech.asia. Please subscribe and like our various platforms.